can be
Ooh,
mortal.
indeed, we are mere mortalites. Welcome back to another edition of Musings. This time around, you got Juan on this corner.
And you got Karen on this side
Now,
on
it
the
is
12th of July.
12th of July,
Yep.
2023. Once again, as we're doing here, 7 p.m. Australia Eastern Standard Time, the watch face once again prevails me from seeing it quite specifically. But yes, we are live for those who are tuning in, at least live, and for those who are not and who are listening to this podcast at a later time. Well,
Check it
thank you
out.
very much, but also make sure you go
Good.
check out the live version
Yeah.
sometimes.
And I hope you are recording the audio on your end, Juan. I just forgot to check with you before we started. So
Good.
Now we can do it now.
Unlikely, but we'll get into the level of expertise for us. I'll
Do-
play this
do
in the
it when you
background as
can.
we're doing this. Exactly. So, folks at home, the topic for today for Musings is experts. And as you might well see, as we're talking about right now at the very beginning of this podcast, would we consider Mere Mortals podcast experts of podcasting? This form right now? Unlikely. In fact, just before we actually went live, we had it running for what seemed to be, 3 or 4 seconds before it crashed, and then we had to kind of restart
I
again.
looked on YouTube and it said 2 seconds.
Test 2 seconds. There you go. Now, however, some people at home would think, hey, you guys have done upwards of 500 episodes across the platforms, right? Book reviews and everything else, probably even more. Many would consider us as experts. So there's going to be a good conversation to be had about this. And what triggered this particular topic was a good supporter of the podcast, Petar. He sent through a particular comment through the Boostagrams. I'm not going to bring it up just now, but I'll paraphrase it unless you want to bring it up very directly.
I can bring it up, yeah.
As you bring it up, it was all in relation to
It made
being
Juan
an
think.
expert. Hey,
It made Juan think. It made you
it
stop.
did make me think. It made me
Stop you in your
pause in our
tracks.
last conversation.
Yeah, so the one in particular was, I imagine the vast majority of papers were written in the same spirit of how yours were. So this is in reference to our 2 dodgy theses, which we were talking about recently. Be skeptical of people who claim to be expert in the field, mere mortalites. And that stopped you in your tracks.
Yeah, so there was a couple of pieces within there that made me think, and there was around, 1, experts. 2, I thought, my mind's starting to wonder, well, who are we going to trust? 3, then the basis of trust. 4, I was like, the people who claim to be experts. So I was like, there was a couple of things that I went, this is worth unpacking and having a bit of a conversation about. And out of all of those, so, we could probably take this particular podcast into many ways. I would probably begin it with, fundamentally, do you agree or disagree with Petar's comment there around you should, in general, maybe distrust someone who is touting themselves as an expert?
No, I don't think that's a good default. I think the best default would be trust and optimism. I think life is a lot more better when it's like that. So I wouldn't say by default that you should be skeptical. No.
As my default, I also went down path, but I went at it like really hard. I could see myself as a far, whatever, right, left, whatever lean you think this is. I really thought, no way. Like, you have to, like, where are you going to base on? And what I ended up doing was like my usual, right? I Googled heaps of different little things, find the one, like, varying degrees of what I think I should be looking for.
Did you find out what an expert is?
Hey?
Did you find out what an expert is? I don't actually
know. No, I didn't. Have you got a little definition there just in front of you?
No, neither. I didn't. A person who was very knowledgeable about or skillful in a particular area. Yeah, I think you're just going to get vague definitions, to be honest.
Vague definition. But I didn't think, from what I started having a bit of a look at, I went, it's not as important to probably define what an expert is for certain reasons. I think we'll touch into that in a moment. But more, I think the primordial piece of the question around that was trust, right? So around experts and to being skeptic, and it was, who to trust. And kind of one article piece that I was reading about was talking around with a lot. It was, the joking thing that might be said probably in other places of the world is like, hey, Australia's not real, right? That kind of like statement where, hey, it's not real. But this particular article was going down the path and having an exploration of, how do you know that Australia's real, right?
Okay.
And it was, well, so let's imagine, let's spin this around to a place that both me and Karen have never been to. So Sweden, right? So for us, if the question was to come up in terms of, hey, Karen, how do you know Sweden is a real place?
How would
your
I
answer might, your answer might default to, well, a teacher told me, or A friend of ours went there
Yeah.
and saw it.
Yeah.
A map that I've seen shows me that it's there. I can find articles on the place of Sweden, and it appears to be reality.
I've met people from there
Who
who
come from
claim to
Sweden?
be Swedish. Yes.
There you go. So there's all these things, and what it was trying to ascertain this particular article, which I it's not there's no reluctance, but I was neutral, so I wanted to bring this point to you to see what you thought of it. Was that in all of those examples, the teacher, the paper, the map, the people, your friends that go there, you're in all of them trusting that that individual is actually, or that individual or that information is correct. It's not knowledge that you per se have come to be able to absolutely verify 100%. No, you've had to trust it in some way or another. And, what I was saying in that particular article was, around mostly 99%, maybe even more of the things that we think to be true or that we agree with, whether we think it comes from experts or we provide that expertise to be a teacher or a map, some other source of information, we kind of just trust that that is correct. Now,
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd use that phrasing. Like if you're gonna go to that level, you're kind of almost getting to the level of Descartes. What is truth? What is anything? How can I know that this isn't just a dream at the moment, or it's being a devil is confusing my senses, or that I'm actually a vat in a brain? If you're taking like the David Chalmers type route, if you're doubting so many different independent claims, maps, the internet, real life people, friends. I think you're almost at the point where you're just doubting reality itself. So I'm not sure how helpful that is, to be honest. To
well,
say
I think the what the article
like,
was,
and then the and to add on to that would be, even if you go, how do you know that just in that one instance, that's just one data point? That doesn't mean shit. Science is all about the truest things that we can verify through science. They're independent, verifiable by a whole lot of people. So if you went to Sweden once, that's
you got to reproduce it. Got to go 10 times.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, but I think the article, what it was trying to get to, and then either I've taken it this way, or what it was trying to get to was to not confuse trusting the experts and knowing the facts, because I think the bit that made me really pause about Petar's one around, hey, you need to be a skeptic about experts. I kind of went down the path in this explanation where you could say theoretically that a map or a cartographer would be the expert at putting together this information. Now, if you start being skeptical of that, skeptical of the teacher, skeptical of someone who comes from Sweden saying it's Sweden, now that's obviously an extreme example. However, it kind of shows that at some point you have to just be trusting, and you cannot confuse or absolutely cut the line between the facts to be absolutely true to your point of view as it explains the world, the reality around you, and what you just have to kind of trust in terms of experts or information sources that at the very least are going to be as correct as you'd want them to be, probably, in comparison to going and figuring out yourself, just because there's so much information. I guess that's where, looking into that, I went, that's probably why I fundamentally would say, I would disagree in the set of, being skeptical all the time about experts.
Yeah, so I think maybe what Peter was really referring to, because Peter's not like an unreasonable dude or anything, so I think if I had to say what he would add onto of his message was, he was referring to two guys who wrote a thesis and saying how shit it was. Now, I'm sure both of us would claim that we were not experts at that stage, and that we knew what we were writing was not expertise. It was something, but it wasn't expertise. And so if people were to read that in the future, you would just hope that they would know, okay, this is it's a grad, not even a grad student. It's a was it like pre-grad? Who
Undergrad.
There we go. Who hasn't gone? They're not an expert. They're like the dumbest. They're 21-year-old. What do they know? They're stupid shits. So he would probably be skeptical of people maybe claiming expertise, not people who are experts, but maybe claiming expertise. I think there's a slight difference to that because
Yeah.
in
Let
our
me let
case, it's very obvious to see no that you shouldn't take as what was written on those two papers as true.
Correct. Well, let me pass two parts of that because again, I wanted to get your thoughts on this, and again, we immortalize whether you're listening to this live or later. Please send through some comments around this because I was kind of interested in this. In the point of, so we made the reference that we've both written some theses, undergrads. Now we don't tout ourselves up. Both me and Karen are engineers by trade, but we sure as hell wouldn't be touting around the world that we know we're
Not at all.
engineers or we're practical engineers. No way. In fact, a friend of mine who I went to uni with, she stopped me on the street today, and I had my headphones in. I looked up, I saw her. She looked at me, and she was like, "Oh." Talked to her for about 5 minutes. She'd still been in engineering and construction, and I was like, "Yeah, I basically did engineering for about 8 months, and I never did a single day of engineering in the rest of my life." And so that was, case in point. I take that undergrad with an absolute massive dosage of rationality and respect to what point that was coming, that information.
Yep.
But it made me think, so two parts. One, it's the people touting themselves to be experts, I think is a really key thing, where if I had to think of the people that are where the signal is or where the truest information is, it's unlikely that they generally put out, at least I see, and tell me if you think this is wrong, that they say, I'm the leading figure in this. I'm the one who knows it all. I'm the one who's got all the answers. It's very rare to see that matched up with true just sharing of information that by and large, I guess people would say, hey, that's the type of info I can rely that on that to be the truth. I don't see, to take a different route, a global map, like a map saying, hey, this is the most correct map there is. It's a map. I think we just kind of take it as, okay, that's as correct as it's going to be from a, sizing and rational view that you want to do it, apart from, it's 17 millimeters angles off, whatever. Yeah, you don't really care. But this is, again, true for people who I know, or at least try to surround myself or listen to. Again, I'll always quote him, but someone like a Tim Ferriss, right? My view is that he would be an expert in the field of podcasting, but he sure as hell doesn't come across in trying to say that he is, and he just tries to share sometimes a lot of the information and things that he's talking about. That, to me, I go, okay, he's an individual who's not particularly saying he's an expert, but you can, by and large, make a good assessment that most people would agree that he is an expert, and I'm probably going to be more inclined to listen to him because he's not maybe self-touting it in any way. Would you disagree with that?
Yeah, I think you just got to be careful with the what people you would even say people are experts in. I'm not sure I'd call Tim Ferriss an expert in podcasting or about podcasting. He's an expert interviewer. There's no doubt about that. But I would probably put someone more like James Cridland, who has multiple podcasts, writes a newsletter for podcasts, goes to all of the podcast events, and is like just like it's his whole life basically. He's someone who I'm like, yeah, he's probably an expert in podcasting, kind of as a broad thing.
Good.
So I get what you're
good
trying to say,
differentiation.
but it's I think it's useful just to have if you're an expert, it's probably it has to be a niche type thing. It can't be an expert in a broad field. I don't think. Yeah, like a life expert, a life coach.
Well, exactly, and I think the point where probably I'd totally agree on Peter here, and then for mere mortals at home to take in, it would be, here's the classic. You see videos out there of the making fun of the scammers, or the, hey, let me show you how you can make $1 million in 7 days and 14 days by doing my secret 10 recipes. It's like kind of that combination of, well, there's scammy and there's energy to try to get the money out of you, but two, it's the, hey, I'm an expert, you should come and listen to me because I'm so high and mighty. That, at least to me, screams out on, okay, that's giving me some warning signs that I should be very skeptic here at someone who's touting, potentially, tying it in with financial benefit for that individual for whatever the case. I'd go, okay, yep. If from that particular angle, I go, absolutely, be skeptic of someone touting themselves as being an expert, especially if he's got some sort of tie that financially or otherwise benefits that individual.
Yes. Yeah. I've got a whole approach of red flags to kind of like look out for.
Ooh, okay.
But I wanted to first though give some like real examples, because I think it can kind of sound like airy fairy at the moment. We're just talking shit about experts, but it's what actually are the kind of bad type that you should be skeptical of. So there was a couple of things related to, for example, Paul Ehrlich. Do you know who that is? Have you heard of that name before? So
Nope.
he's the guy who wrote this very influential book called The Population Bomb. And this was just a book that came out in, I think it was around the 1970s period, where people were worrying about overpopulation of the earth, people worrying about energy. And his whole
I believe. Have you done the book?
thesis.
Have you done a book review on this as
No,
well?
because I haven't read the book. I'm not sure
Right.
I ever will. It's I'd maybe read it as like a historical thing of this is a really shit book, but it was influential, kind of like Mein Kampf. I've read Mein Kampf because obviously I'm a Nazi, and and but it was a shit book. Like it wasn't a good
Yep.
read, and I feel like this would probably be in that camp. And this was kind of one of those ones where it was there's underlying motives for what people are saying, and they're putting out graphs. They're saying they're an expert in the field of making predictions, in this guy's case, about what the population is going to be and how this will impact humanity. But there was a lot of underlying motives with him, which was this real Malthusian, if you've ever heard that, which was I think his name was Thomas Malthus, something like that, who was an economics guy, very pessimistic about the future, as like kind of like the Thomas Hobbes, humans are going to like fight nail tooth and claw, blood tooth and claw, whatever it is, just to get their own, and we'll like eat each other basically to death, sort of deal. And funnily enough, you kind of see this with that anti-war doco I went to on July 4th that I was talking about. Right at the end, they were throwing in some environmental stuff just to kind of like get the support of the environmentalist group as well. And I'm this book that I've actually just finished reading here, this Richard Rhodes book on energy. There's some really interesting stuff about nuclear energy and how the nuclear got a really bad rap, because some experts were claiming, this is how the science is, and they kind of didn't really know. They were experts at making a nuclear bomb, but not experts at making nuclear energy in terms of for human consumption, electricity and lights and things like this. And yeah, there's another one, Mark Andreessen. This is a book I haven't read as well, so uh, just keep that in mind. Called When Reason Goes on Holiday. He was saying this is basically like the book to read of all this like huge history that he did, by Neven Cesarevich, something like that. And he was talking about how policymakers who are experts in their field start to branch out of their domain and start making policy in different areas, much like I was just saying. The nuclear physicist who knows tons about making a bomb maybe shouldn't be influencing policy or saying, claiming expertise on nuclear energy as a whole, yeah, in because that can kind of become distorted because
Yep.
they aren't an expert. They're not an expert. So funnily enough, a lot of it is just about experts who, one, they're not actually experts in that domain. Even if they are, they may suck at communication. So I'd kind of put myself in this camp of, if I was an expert in something, I'm not sure I'm a great teacher of that expertise as well. And then a question for you: what do you do when they're experts on both sides of it? So in the Merchants of Doubt book review I did, that was where it was the tobacco companies. They had their experts saying, tobacco's good, smoking's not going to do anything, lung cancer, there's no proven health benefit risks. And then on the other side, you have other experts saying, oh no, there's definitely risks. You can see the lung cancer studies done with tar on mice and things like this. So if you're presented with a topic, for example, and there's experts on both sides, kind of what do you do then?
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm going to try and connect it to something that I was also thinking in my mind just before we started all this, which was kind of the influence of the expert. And so, because my answer to this would be, well, I would probably start associating it with where the optimizing or where the influence is coming from. So let's take a easier example. Let's just say two toxicologists, right? And if two toxicologists who were my friends came to me, and one of them said, "Hey, Juan, you should drink this bottled water because we found that the water in the town is, real dirty and it'll probably kill you. But then the other friend goes, oh, actually, we did another couple of oh no, I've had a look at it and it's kind of okay. It's fine.
Or in for my dad's example, he said this recently. He's got a friend who's a doctor who said the flu shot does nothing. It's not worth getting it on a whole, and another who recommended it to him. So
Okay, so
yeah.
let's leverage that example because probably an even more prevalent one, right? So that example, if the two doctors were friends of mine, and that's exactly where the influence stood, hey, it'd be a great platform for debate. That I would kind of open it up. That's where I would go, hey, both of the influence here is maybe prior learnings, prior experiences. Yes, there's two experts giving different views. That would be a chance at the very least on, okay, well, I'll take as much as what's important to me. So, for me, it might be, well, I'm going to optimize to be healthy and fit and whatever the case may be. Whereas maybe one of those experts has decided, hey, you shouldn't take it, but obviously it's probably not the case, but hey, you won't perform as good in your bench press. I'll be like, whoa, no, I want to perform. Give me that shot. So it depends what you're optimizing for, but at least it's a very transparent conversation.
One dies from the flu that year.
But it's a very transparent expert conversation or information, and the skepticism kind of like goes away. And I guess this got starting into the skepticism. So I'll continue with this particular trail, right? So, but then what would happen if these two doctors, you found out that one of them's actually, the owner of an owner of a couple of pharmacies as well that sells the shot, and the other one's just a friend. I know they're both still your friend, but hey, one's this and one's the other one. So at that point, there's going to be a level of skepticism that's introduced to probably the guy who's getting, who has multiple pharmacies, who maybe is recommending it, but also has some financial gain. And that purely comes for humans in the trust ratio, like in the trust aspect of it, which can be more, there could be rational reasons, but definitely starts venturing into much more emotional reasons. Even if you could prove undoubtedly that it has no, like this individual who's put this proposal of, oh, you should have the shot, and maybe does financially gain from it, you could find out that actually it's completely reasonable. He is saying it because of his expertise. You're still emotionally going to go, but there's doubt, and the doubt moves away from the trust, and so you might be more trusting to the other individual. But let's take it, a step further, and then you're saying expert on both sides. So one who's an expert on, saying, yeah, you should get a shot, but he's going to financially gain. But then the other doctor is a doctor you don't even know. So the doctor who owns pharmacies, your friend. But the other doctor, not your friend anymore, and he works for some shady government agency that's looking to mind control or do something by people who don't participate in this, or that he's dodgy dealings with something else. Insert whatever. Then I kind of go like, ooh, okay, there's skepticism on both sides. Maybe I'm more trusting now of the friend doctor, even though he's financially gaining, in comparison to this unknown individual who I don't trust and maybe has dodgy dealings and he's telling me not to do this because of blah, insert whatever. So I think the ultimate answer in that is, it really would just come down to, if there was two experts in competing spaces, I would look at the one, and you could only do this as an individual point of view, that I can thoroughly trust the best, that's coming to it with a data-led, I guess, perspective as much as possible as I can determine that. I think there was another, in looking into this, there was, if you look at like journalism or politicians, generally the information source goes like data to scientist to journalist to politician. And the further down that line you go, the shitter you're going to get to like probably the source of truth.
Yeah, to the pleb at the
end.
So,
the closer I can get to that source of data, if you can, decode the data itself with the exactness. And again, this is don't confuse trusting the experts with knowing the facts. If between two experts, I can see the facts maybe easier, more transparently, I might be more levered towards looking at that, because for sure the trust aspect is the one that's going to push you away from believing something.
Yeah. Before we get onto the Boostagram Lounge, I had a section on skepticism as well, so I think it'd be good for that. So skepticism, this is one I did actually look up the definition for, and it's the theory that certain knowledge is impossible. And I think that's actually useful when thinking about this, because there are people working in fields who are, I'm sure, expert in the field, but there are certain things that probably are impossible to know. So if you're looking at consciousness, for example, so Sam Harris, neuroscience, he's like deep in the forefront of that sort of things when he was kind of working as that more as and less as a podcaster. And I think there's certain claims that he could make as an expert, which you could have to be skeptical of, because it's like there's no way that knowledge is possible, or it's kind of like impossible to know. If he's claiming, yeah, the neuroscience says in the afterlife we all actually go to this Hindu version of heaven. That's what the neuroscience says. I think that's one where you can be skeptical of that, because even though he's an expert, you go, that knowledge is impossible. Like you can't know that knowledge. There's no way of doing that. Now, science has a good way of making things that seemed impossible or seemed unknowable actually coming into that. So, do take that into account. But usually that's over kind of a centuries long or decades long time span, and not just, the other day, oh shit, I came to this, I found it out. Guys, I got it. We're all going to, Vishnu heaven.
Yeah, but I think I would push back on that in the sense that skepticism, is it truly the for mere mortals, right? I'm just thinking, is it really the rational brain that's doing the skepticism, or is it the trusting / emotional part of a human that does that? So what I mean, let's just say that you had, let's just say Sam Harris was a lifelong friend, right? Lifelong friend of yours, helped you through thick and thin, maybe saved your dad's life, saved your brother's life in doing whatever. And then he comes to you and says, Karen, the neuroscience have pointed me to this. When you died, actually, the Vikings were right. We're going to go to Valhalla, and you're going to go there. I think your skepticism there would be less than just knowing who Sam Harris is, purely by the relationship and the trust that you might have of someone. So I think skepticism for sure is maybe the view that there is, that something can be an impossibility for sure. But I think it is really heavily influenced by the level of trust you have with someone, which forms much more apart, I still think, on the emotional side of a human, or the view of that, because otherwise you would just have the same skepticism across any type of situation, independent of the position, the linkages, the influences, and all of that sort of stuff with things, which is just not the case. That just always happens.
Yeah. No, good point. And that kind of gets into some of my red flags and green flags of how I try and sort out what to think of when an expert is saying something in a field which I know nothing about. Yeah.
Good. Okay. Well, let me just jump into the Boostagram Lounge first, then, before we get into the flags, folks. Now, I got asked this today, actually. Today, someone said,
"What's a Boostagram?
What's a Boostagram?"
Oh,
said,
shit.
Glad you should ask. So, folks at home, a Boostagram, for those out there who haven't heard about it, is the ability for, in the Valley for Valley model, using any of the podcasts out there in podcasting 2.0 space, the new podcastapps.com, if you'd like to go and check out some. Things like Fountain, Castomatic, quite a few others out there. You're able to send through a message with some Satoshis attached. And so we'll give you a bit of an example now in our Boostagram Lounge of some of those. Karen, do you want me to read out some of the Valley for Valley ones as well, or you want to keep those specifically for the
keep
Valley
them
for
separate.
Valley?
Just the mere models one.
So now I'm just going to call out specifically here for those at home, if you want to know. Karen has started up the third season of Valley for Valley. So if you want to go check out a little bit more in depth in here, the podcast talking about, the Valley for Valley model and a lot of that, definitely go check that out.
Second episode was done today. I've actually recorded that, spent 2 to 3 hours troubleshooting live stuff, getting it all sorted. Like, God, man, that feed is a mess, trying to get it all set up and recorded 2 book reviews, and then now I'm here. There's a full day of podcasting for me.
Ooh, his podcasting's in his blood. Okay, so I'm going to start with, I believe, on the 8th of July. So we've got one here from Cole McCormick. 1. He says, I think about politics in every field all the time. I want healthier systems, but see how easy it is for a group or person make a deal for themselves. It has to come down to the values that drive a character. That's 5,492 sats and using Fountain.
Yeah, Cole's really interesting because he's younger than us. He's early 20s, and you can see he's like trying to make sense of this crazy, wacky world and seeing like all this information coming into him. It's kind of fun seeing that. I'm going to just jump ahead of you because classic Juan, he didn't go back far enough. So we did receive a message from Tallsiii. Very good educational pod, 500 sat sent using Fountain. So thank you very much, Tallsiii. I don't recognize that name. Very much appreciated.
No, that is a new name. I haven't seen that either. So thank you. Cool. We got one here from our friend Peter, who basically initiated this Musings conversation. Mm-hmm. He says, I find myself mesmerized by politics. Can't say the same, Peter. It's not because I feel connected to any particular group or side. I enjoy the theatrics of it all. These people are the world's greatest liars of consequence. They are clowns that wield real world power. To me, it's more entertaining than Hollywood. It's more entertaining than any Marvel film. It's a car accident on a highway which can't help but gaze as I drive by. It's an unhealthy obsession. I can completely understand why one is turned off by it. 3,838 sats sent using Fountain.
The baby boost. He sent in the baby boost.
Baby.
Cool. I need to actually ask Cole what his 5492 is.
But absolutely. I mean, great point there in terms of Peter. And it kind of comes into the conversation around, well, we talked about politics. Also kind of plays into the whole of the experts, there is a great level of skepticism that needs to be held, I think, at least in my view, from politicians in the sense that, how removed they are from data sets or information, the exchange of information getting to them, what they want to get out of the presentation of the information. It's not even, and we talked about this previously, it's not for the information sake. It's for whatever helps gain whatever traction towards the view that they want, towards the outcome, not the pure scientific, like, hey, I'm going to test a hypothesis. It's no, hey, I want to be voted in. Here's the data led in a particular way, so you may influence a human to do that.
Yeah, you know what? That was a great episode to do because it has become more firmly convinced in my mind that what I said at the end was correct, that politics is the male version of the keeping up with
the real Housewives of New York.
It's making so much sense to me. All of these people who I kind of like smart ass people who spend time on it and talk about it and have own podcasts and things about it, I go like, oh, this makes so much more sense now. I get it. I get why they care about it. It's because it's fun.
It's the male equivalent of theater.
Yeah, exactly. So and that's awesome. I'm glad he enjoys it. And I kind of get the driving by the car, the rubbernecking. And I think in response to that, I sent him a message and was like, yeah, and this is why I need to not do that, because in the rubbernecking process, I'm pretty sure that I'll hit the car in front of me and I will get hurt because of my rubbernecking and watching. Yeah. So this is where it's like,
and then you'll complain that it was the politics' fault.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah.
We've got another one here around politics by McIntosh. He says, politics, how I wish it wasn't necessary. I believe it is, unfortunately. In my opinion, the best we can do is hopefully, maybe, one day have elected officials who work on cleaning away craft programs, etc., to minimize government. Maybe in my utopia. I think a lot of governments are going to have to make very interesting decisions when real hyperinflation begins in the big economy countries. I fear it won't go well, but maybe it's impetus for real change. McIntosh from Generation Bitcoin. 2,100 sats sent using Fountain. So
that's
McIntosh,
probably a Bitcoin boost there as well. 2,100.
I appreciate that, McIntosh. Thank you very much. And yeah, we talked about this as well. The point of the utopia, or at least the hope that government sort of minimizes or becomes smaller as time goes on. You hope that that's the case, but
man, I really hope that's not a utopic vision. Like that just sounds normal to me, but maybe it is utopic.
Well, and I think, and it's I'm going to have such a fun conversation tomorrow with Jeff around this, but I think, largely, what do you do when you're a big player holding on to what is, I would consider here, here's a more IT term, I guess, a legacy system, right? This is a legacy state in terms of participation. You got two ways, usually in the big companies, right? You either innovate and change and go along for the ride, or you hold on to the motherfucking thing until you die, or you blow up, or someone goes flying by you, right? So I have a feeling it's not going to be the case where governments and states in general are going to go, oh yeah, cool, we'll just slowly get smaller and allow other things to participate. I think it's going to be one of those like leech and hold onto everything for dear life to make it maybe still seem like it's reasonable or the latest, whatever it may be. So I definitely think more towards what McIntosh is saying. It's probably a utopia in most people's minds.
It'll be funny just seeing what happens in this next decade. There's like big talks, like I was saying, a lot of the Bitcoin stuff is people, they may be like claiming to be Bitcoin experts. I'm not talking about McIntosh here, the other shows, and it's a financial. They're a financial podcast. They're not a Bitcoin podcast. They're a financial one, and that's where it's like, oh, okay, well, you got to separate these two things. But look, what I would say is, I'm starting to make some travel plans, and I'm just looking at places I want to go where I think it'd be fun or interesting. And I was going like, oh, I'd maybe go to Brazil because my friend Lucas is heading back home there, so it'd be cool to catch up with him. Would I want to see any other South American countries? Paraguay.
You should go to El Salvador, dude.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Like, this is one of those ones where it's like a government, and in particular, one guy in the government has made a massive risk. He's crazy to have done what he did, which was, accepting Bitcoin as the national currency or joint
Legal
national
tender.
currency, legal tender. And it's a huge, huge risk that he made. But when I look at, okay, like, where are people traveling to that I personally know, that I have heard of, who, Chris Fisher, for example, I don't think he's ever been outside of the United States, and he's flying to El Salvador in November. And this is one where I'm like, okay, this is people who are like making pretty big decisions. First kind of like time out of the country. Where are you going to go? Well, El Salvador. No one would have thought of that 3 or 4 years ago. And this is one where it's like, you know what? Maybe that is a country that is heading down the right path. That are making the right decisions.
Maybe. So there you go. Current itinerary is going to be Brazil, El Salvador, Portugal, and then
maybe. Look, maybe. Dude, there is much more interest in my eyes of going to Portugal and El Salvador than there was three years ago, for sure. Yep. So it'll be interesting just seeing, and once again, Portugal, that's one where they've got really how would you call it, nuanced supportive drug laws. In talking of drug laws in particular, which I find really fascinating, where you can get heroin. There are like state-sponsored, I believe. I haven't investigated this really, really deeply.
Oh, here we go. Karen's trusting the experts.
But I believe there is these drug ones where you can go there, and it's really nuanced in terms of you can get heroin from a kind of government-sponsored type deal.
Like a state-sanctioned ability to get it, but then to do it safely so people don't overdose and stuff like that.
Yeah. Turn down your audio as well, Juan. I can already hear the feedback coming through on if you wouldn't mind, please.
Let me just do that quickly while we're talking through.
I'll jump onto Peter's next message then. So we've got Peter here with a big striper boost, 7777, and he says, it's a sad reality, but Karen is right. You can't save anyone from themselves. Enjoyed this chat. We're still early. And that was to the episode that I did with Kieran Nolan. So thank you, Peter. Glad you joined in and enjoyed it. And yeah, I think I was just making the point then that some people just you can't protect everyone from anyone. There's much why I think regulation is silly in a large part. Like, there's always going to be scammers that they'll pop up anywhere, everywhere. You just can't.
Oh, as well, and you can't build a system to keep out all bad doing as well, right? You're going to have someone who's going to try and break it in some way. Nor should you form a system for every single bad doing. It's going to be an inefficient system as well.
Correct.
And the final one that we got here as well is Emcot. Now, again, have I seen? Yes. Cool show. Found you through Boost on the Bitcoin Dad podcast. V for V. Nice. 1,180 sat using Fountain.
Thank you very much, Emcot. Yeah, Bitcoin Dad, that's one of the Chris Fisher's shows that I just mentioned. Probably my favorite Bitcoin / finance podcast.
All right, well, let's get into the actual red flags and green flags that you were promising there, Karen.
Yeah. So here's my list that I've got, and this would probably be just okay, I see some information coming from an expert, a source, or something like that. Here's the kind of things that I would look out for, and try to, some of this is I only came up with it because I was thinking about this, but
Mm.
I hope it's deep enough in kind of my mentality that some of these would ping. So red flags, if they can't follow their own advice. So if they're the expert doctor saying you need to, watch your weight, you're dangerously obese, don't you know how unhealthy this is, or things like this, but then they're fat themselves. Yeah. This gets into in the last episode I was talking about how I can't really follow people who the 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 trainer or the mentor who hasn't done the thing themselves. I really struggle with that. So it's kind of getting into that. Once you emphasize the complexity, so if they're making it saying like this is so difficult, really getting, making it perhaps even more complex than it needs to be, not doing the opposite, which is
Mm.
making it easier. Uh, you mentioned selling something. If there's financial incentives, that's definitely a big one to watch out for. Kind of aggrandization of other qualities. So if we look at something like Sam Bankman-Fried, you know, they weren't talking about his expertise in running a huge company and being like this wonder kid, and like he's just so smart on the nuances of tax laws and of marketing and things like this. No, they were talking like, man, this kid, he must be so good because he can play Diablo or World of Warcraft in meetings. That's the exact opposite, right? That is the exact opposite of, instead of emphasizing of they're aggrandizing other qualities instead of the ones that they should be. It's this
Mm.
weird mix where it's like, because he's so good at being an asshole and playing World of
Well,
Warcraft in this way,
it's kind
that
of like that.
must mean he's so
Yeah, it's
good
kind of like
at.
the equivalent of the mentality of like a Steve Jobs, replication sort of mentality elsewhere. It's kind of like, damn, this dude must be such an asshole. He's got to be like Steve Jobs and just be amazing, right?
Yes,
Like
yes.
it's not, again, it's not, you know, because
Conflating
of
other
his,
qualities,
in
yeah.
spite of him, of,
Yes.
Steve Jobs having that mentality that he, like, things worked out. Holy shit, like amazing. There must have been so much luck going down the way. So I think what you're saying there specifically is like, you shouldn't just by default say, oh, it's, this person's playing games during this meeting. Oh, he must be, actually going well. No, you should be thinking about it. Well, crap, this must be like in spite of this. So shit, there better be something else that he's pulling to make this
Yeah,
work.
exactly right. Yeah, yeah. Persuasive language. This is one I talked about in depth with Pete Smithson, and a lot of our clips were related to this recently. Of when people who don't really know the thing and are really persuasive, and so you can have that comment of, you've got these two friends. Which one do you listen to? They're both kind of making good arguments. This is where the one who is in the right, they are more knowledgeable, but they don't know how to express it correctly. And then the other one who is really persuasive, they're a good talker, could sway you because they are better at the talking aspect. So once again, that's probably something the other dude should be working on. I should work
Mm.
on how to explain these simpler or in a more engaging manner. But that's I think one where it's, if they're relying on the persuasive language, that's one just to keep a lookout for if they're being real emotional about it. And my final one here was title grossness. So if they are relying on their title, if they put their title as like you'll see it on books sometimes, where I'm not sure if this guy here is Richard Rhodes, but they'll rely on, Dr. Richard Rhodes on the title of the book. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a big fan of that. So for example, Andrew Huberman, I don't think I've seen him referred as Dr. Andrew Huberman. He is a doctor, right? Like he
Mhm.
is, but I don't really see him referred to that. It's not on the title of his podcast, is it? It's just called Huberman Lab. It's not Dr. Huberman
We'd
Lab.
have to actually just confirm whether he's actually, well, he is a professor. So the big thing is, he says he's not a practicing. He's a professor, so he professes things. I think he
Okay.
is a doctor, though. I think he has done his PhD. I'm fairly certain, but yeah, I agree with you in terms of the title piece. When you have to use a title to showcase something kind of demonstrate once again that you're leveraging, and I think this is what's going to come to a couple of the flags was when you start leveraging things. So the flag for me, the red flag, when you start leveraging things that are beyond the data, beyond the lookout, that's when an expert or a skepticism, that's when it starts being influenced. So when someone comes across with any particular point, this could be in anything, and then leverages something that connects back value to them, or has to put in something in place of the data to try and like get you over the line, that's when I'd go, okay, I'd be skeptic here of that particular expert. And you named a couple of ones, but if a doctor, if I was seeing a doctor and they'd be like, oh, I've found out this, and I'm a doctor, so you should believe me over this. I go, you don't have to say that. If the data proves it, if this proves it, then awesome. Here's another doctor example, again with the red flags, through COVID, right? And you could have found varying degrees of conversations on the shot or not the shot, and what does the booster do, and you get the different types of, is it the Moderna vaccine or the Pfizer vaccine? But even with things like masks, you had the same state-supported doctors saying do one thing, and then it would change when it was, oh, no, actually we shouldn't do this because you need this, and then it changes. And a lot of the times it was through that stage, it was, hey, we are the state doctors, and there's the chief health nurse and chief health medical doctor. You must listen to us about this. But the data didn't necessarily change altogether too much. And then when data was presented that would go against them, it was no, well, the chief health officer said to do this. You must do this. Now, obviously, there was in various countries, but that's where I start going, okay, if you're having to throw and, make it maybe obfuscate the information in such a way, then I start thinking, okay, there's probably reasonable doubt here to be placed onto items such as these. Because I agree to let's put it to a green flag. A green flag to an expert is if I went to a doctor, like a local GP or something, and they can very well articulate something that might be a complex thing into a very simple thing that can be explained to someone, and doesn't just put it at the fact that I'm a doctor and whatever. Dude, I'm going to be absolutely entrusting this person and feeling like they understand the shit, are able to simplify it, or able to communicate it to the level that you actually need to. Fantastic. Again, here's another one for things like Bitcoin or in the financial space, especially financial planners. So I feel like that could be such a scammy business, dude, or real estate agents, stuff like that, right? It can be real scammy. So, you might look at them in one virtue as, okay, well, this person's selling me a house. They're the expert. They know the things. And then you go, cool, but what side are you sitting on? Are you the buyer or the seller? And, where is this particular real estate agent wanting to influence? And so, you have to be really diagnosing, I'd say is a word, and where are they sitting, and what's the information? Is the information being given to you as knowledge, or is the information being used to you as you're the selling point? And sometimes, not all the time, but this applies to, say, technology in general, that, if you're not paying for the product, you're the product.
You are the
and
product,
so
yeah.
sometimes let's talk about for in properties. Sometimes when you don't pay for a property inspection or building report and you get given one, there's a reason you just get given one, right? There is a reason for that. Not all the cases are going to be that they're hiding things, but they don't have to necessarily share. And so there can be some caveats to these things of, oh, well, I'll trust the experts. No, sometimes you do have to dig deep and realize, where are the benefit? Who's benefiting underneath all of these pieces?
Yeah, definitely. So some of my green flags as well were if they're humble, if they have this kind of consistent return to base principles. So it is a going back to no, this is why what I'm trying to explain here is correct. Because it's so easy in conversation to go off in this area and it's so fun. We'll talk about this thing and I can relate it to this thing. But one of the things I like about, let's just take Eric Voorhees, for example, who is really, I would say, an expert on the kind of cryptocurrencies. He just always goes back to these kind of libertarian principles of that he has, and it's just refreshing to hear him because there's always kind of this base thing that he goes to, and you can question whether that base thing is right or not, but he's so consistent with that. I think that's something I generally find good. To be honest, if they're just generally sensible, so it doesn't have to be, and that's a tough, tricky one. But if they have some really far out whack views on, let's just say Scientology or something, for example, they're high up in the church, and they're an expert in, I don't know, the 5G cellular network and which frequency or broad. I don't know. Do you that's a hard one for me. Do you think if someone is got something that is absolutely insane, but then they're an expert in a field, can you kind of trust their expertise in that, or is there an ability of humans to be able to dissociate and be like, no, this is one area of my life over here, this other area I can follow a more scientific or more truthful kind of path?
Yeah, I think the terminology for that, like as an analogy, if egg number 7 is spoiled, do you still eat egg number 12 of the same batch? Right?
I don't
And
know.
as a
I don't
human,
buy
just
enough
thinking that.
eggs.
Hey, well, true. There is a thing of guilt by association, or like the moral contagion of an idea, right? So if you've listened to us at the Immortals here for a long time and you kind of believe all the things that we kind of say, or at least are aligning with it, and all of a sudden we say, oh, but by the way, you should never buy Bitcoin and only use, I don't know, the teeth of
Bitcoin Cash.
children, the teeth of children to pay for things. Does that deny the rest of the ideas and presentations that we put forward? No, it doesn't. It gets much harder when maybe there is more things that you associate with someone that are, offensive and rude. There was, can't remember if it was a joke or someone made this at work or something else, but it was around like, hey, Hitler's actually a pretty good painter. And it's kind of like, oh, really? And by association, you'd be like, oh, it must be terrible. I don't even ever buy that. But you can rationalize and say someone can be good at this or can do this right, and also have all this fucked up stuff that they did. Similarly, I think would go with in a rational mind. Of course, like you could be an absolute expert at, kicking with your left foot in soccer or something like that for a particular team, and also hold views that are just absolutely fucked and nonsensical. And you believe in, uh, gremlins that come out from the ground and feed your daughter. I don't know. I could see myself believing the expertise, even though the individual is, unhinged in other places. But if the if the overall sensibleness of the human as a whole maybe spreads to too much of the general aspects, maybe it'll take away from the expertise of a particular thing. But that's an interesting one. I'm not totally sure. I guess another example would be a heavily autistic person. A heavily autistic person, or even a savant, might be an absolute genius about strategizing or mathematics or visual recognition, but they're shit at social situations. Now, it doesn't take away that they're experts at the mathematical piece, just that they're not sensible at a lot of other things. But that's to be expected.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I'm changing my mind on that. The sensibleness doesn't need to be that strong. Maybe if they're not sensible in maybe 3 various different areas. So if it's like they're part of some really crazy far out fringe religion, if they doubt the validity of, I don't know, the ocean or something else. I think it's just if they're too far down a particular ideas, and I had this section before. I think you got to be careful not to err into conspiracyism. So just because you can see an expert is full of shit because you know something about this industry and you see like, wow, they are full of shit. They are you know for a fact that they are wrong, and you know for a fact that they're like lying about it or that they have these ulterior motives. I think you got to be careful not to then go, okay, this guy is full of shit. What's the opposite side of his argument? I'm going to believe that. And so this is, I think, how a lot of people might fall into conspiracyism. They see kind of this what's the word? Irreconceivable, inconvertible. It's not like, it's like a combination of those two. Proof. There's this incontrovertible. Irrefutable as well. That this thing is that this person is full of shit, and then they just jump into the next crazy fucking thing that's pointing out, oh, these guys are full of shit. Also, check out this. I think there's something
Yeah,
about that.
I guess I'd term it as like if someone claims to be an expert, maybe showcases they're expert at something or one particular thing, but then the foundational rationality or practicality of where that source of expertise comes from isn't reproduced in other areas, then I'd have a problem. So if you can reproduce again, being an expert at free shooting, free like shooting goals, something like that, and there's this basis around maybe physics or training or discipline, but then it's just you have this haywire views of those same foundations everywhere else. Then I start going, okay, maybe that's more luck than it is you actually retrieving expertise from somewhere. This is just you're just fluking it. That's making it work because you obviously have no conceivable logic everywhere else. So maybe something like that.
Yeah, it'd be like
Um,
if you're the caddy who is amazing at analyzing golf swings. You've seen, thousands, hundreds of thousands of swings. You know what someone's doing wrong with their swing. And then as they're watching the ball sail off into the distance, they notice a geese formation and they're like, yeah, geese aren't real because I've seen so many geese. So that they always fly when Tiger Woods hits. So they're drawn to the crack of a Tiger Woods hit or something. So it'd just be like, what the fuck? Where'd that come from?
yeah, no, exactly. A couple of the green flags I had in my mind as well was so when an expert can quite well reproduce something or idea or has had enough repetitions in the bank that almost makes it irrefutable of what they're doing, that kind of maybe lends itself more to me trusting an expert. So if someone claims to be an expert and they've been in the practice for a year versus someone who's done it for 60 years with however many thousands of repetitions, I kind of go, okay, well, I'm probably going to rely more there just by that very nature of repetition and being able to have spotted the issues. Two, I'd say if the individual is like a default curious about something and landing at the truth and being okay to be wrong. So I'll join a couple there, but if an expert's okay to be wrong and is default curious as opposed to otherwise, I go, okay, I kind of lean towards trusting this expert more because they're not putting the influence of whatever they've said to be correct. They're trying to get to the truth, whatever that may be, and they're curious enough and humble enough to try to find that. That to me, so an example here would be if I go to a doctor and the doctor says, "Hey, you know, here's an example of what I think you should take a shot," and then you bring to them three of the latest journal articles about X, Y, and Z, and that individual then kind of poses through them, thinks about them, and then gives you a response, maybe like, oh, okay, I should probably reflect on this given this new information. I'm going to be more likely to trust that expert because he's reasonably taking in information if it is of rational value, etc. So that would be another green flag. And then the big one, this is where I landed on, and I'll summarize with this as well as I end. Experts and skepticism and the like is the biggest thing that I came to around expertise has to be, and once again, is what you set the boundaries of expertise. So I'll give you an example. If you and me, no, we'll talk about interviewing, right? We've become better interviewers than most. I'm not going to call it experts, but we're better interviewers. Now, let's say a meteor hits Earth, right? Kills everybody apart from you, me, and Chris Fisher, right? Now, are we expert podcasters or interviewers? There's three individuals on Earth remaining. By the base nature of what that contains, you can't really say that we're any more expert than each other. Realistically, that fails to then that logic kind of just escapes out the door. That doesn't make sense. Same thing if you say, if you only had 12 doctors, and that's it. There's no more choices, and all these 12 doctors all graduated at the same time, and say they're 2 years in. Where's the comparison? What's the base expectation between what an expert is and isn't? There isn't. That doesn't exist. You're all the same level. And so it made me think it's obviously the container that you're talking about. And so we're a container of all of humanity. So whatever you're comparing it to humanity. So be very careful when you say, hey, this person is an expert. It's an expert and you're talking about like a global context, Or are you talking, hey, this dude's an expert about Brisbane City in comparison to other people from Brisbane City, right? There's and in comparison to someone coming else from, external. It's very different terminology. So you got to kind of be precise. But the biggest one is precision. So I think for me, the expertise and the skepticism goes away if the precision of the boundary of the domain that the expert is either touting themselves or you're looking at them in, the narrower it is, the more I am inclined to trust and believe and expect that the information coming from there can be trusted than at a broad base. And so, what do I mean by that? If someone externally was talking about the us as mere mortalites and said, "Hey, they're experts at fitness," I challenge that. I challenge that because I would say, from an external view, that's very broad. That's very, very broad. And then when you start describing some things, at least we could start describing at a higher level, the difference between fitness expertise tips or levels or whatever about handstands versus bodybuilding or whatever have you, that's very different. Like, it's very, very different. And then when you start going within each band, right? And obviously you got to have a limitation or a point. But if you go, okay, now if this person is truly just teaching you about planches or one-handed handstands or, insert just a particular move, and that's what they're touting themselves as being an expert on, there's going to be more relation to me thinking that, yes, okay, I can more trust this individual, or at least trust that the information coming from that narrow band is to be either more correct, or I'm more comfortable that this like amount of energy being expended on this very short band than if someone came and touted themselves as being an expert at fitness in general. Because I'd go, nah, bullshit meter. Like, to be an expert in fitness and all of its fitness, like, no, that's inconceivable to me. But the narrower the band, the more I'll be likely to believe you.
Yeah, interesting. I was just thinking, for the value for value, for example, I'd probably put myself in the kind of like top three, maybe people who get it because Adam Curry invented it. John C. Dvorak, he'd know a lot. Maybe Gigi as well. He seems to really know a lot about this, but not many people know about it. And it's like, am I an expert in it? And I go, it hasn't been around long enough because it's all about digital content creators and how you can uh, get value from your audience, and that includes money, but it can include other things as well. And I just go, digital content's only been around for what, like 10 years. So it's kind of hard to be an expert in it because it hasn't been around long enough. So it's kind of getting to your point there. My last kind of green flags were very similar to yours, saying I don't know. So being comfortable with that being, I suppose that's the same as comfortable as being wrong. And then, yeah, I've said doesn't stray outside of their expertise. So once again, it's kind of just the opposite way of saying they stay within their boundaries. They know, they know that. So my summary was, like most things, I feel like I should just leave this at the top of my summaries. You're screwed no matter what. Life is paradoxical. There should be a tagline. Life would be boring if it was easy. So it's kind of cool. There's going to be experts, there's going to be fake experts, there's going to be people who know a lot, and there's going to be people who claim to know that they know a lot. And you're going to just have to sort this out. It's always going to be there, and you're just going to have to do your best. And you're going to fail at doing it, but I think you can get better at it. We gave a list of flags there. I think one of the most important ones is just to know it's about the whole. So Andreas Antonopoulos, I find him very persuasive. That kind of should be a red flag. And maybe that should be like, does that mean everything that he says about Bitcoin is now irrelevant? No, not really. And I think you can kind of make up for it by finding another person or other experts who are of a similar quality, but they have the opposite things. Eric Voorhees is not a persuasive dude. You listen to him and he's really dry. And so those two together are kind of a good combination. And if they're agreeing on things, that's like it's a good sign. That's a good indication. So I think the red flags and the green flags, it's kind of the balance of them, and no one's going to be perfect. So there's always going to be flaws in people. And then the last one was, a lot of the times it doesn't really matter. How many times in your life do you actually have to make a judgment that requires expertise for you to make? For me, I was just thinking it's so rare that that actually happens, that there's something that an expert knows and that I have to really, really, really be on top of and really care about that much. And even then, if it is, I probably don't need to make a rash decision. It doesn't need to be made today or tomorrow or on a phone call. It should be made over weeks or months of, am I going to invest in this thing? Is this girl the right girl for me? Is it, the right time to have a baby? Should I take the business down this path? It's
Yeah.
I think it's good to not rely on an expert and then make a rash decision. It's listen to them for 3 months and then
Although, what about? So I'll pose this as a final question for you. If a loved one is in hospital suddenly, and a doctor reaches out to say, "Hey, we think we need to remove their heart and pump it through some blood and put it back in," and I'm the expert cardiologist here, and I think we need to do that, and it sounds wacky to you. Do you then just default trust? And like it's an emergency?
I don't think you have any other option, right? What's if
Exactly.
it's
What's your
a
other? Yeah. What do you? Well, that's where, and I guess the criticality, the timing here differs in terms of what you're saying is when you can, by all rational means, definitely, do not be pressured into time. But there will absolutely be times when time is of the essence, and then you need to not let. If you have a default view of experts and being skeptic of something, the danger of not acting versus having that skepticism could prove to be worse.
because in that case, it's you're just going to have one doctor coming to you. I don't know how likely or how often it is that you'll have two
Multiple.
doctors come in and one's like, we should really do this. We got to take out the heart, and the other's like, nah, just let it rest and give it a week. She'll be fine. That sort of deal. I think it's in that case that's where it is. Like the medical system does seem to be really good at high trauma impact. Things need to be done straight away, and it sucks more at the long term. You've got to fix this up, but you've got diabetes and you've got to fix this up over the next 5 years type deal. That's where the medical system really seems to let it down. Just a point there, but yeah, I mean, if it's a high impact, quick decision, I think it's pretty rare that you can have 2 or 3 experts giving you differing opinions. You're kind of just going to have to go with
Take
whatever you've got, right? Yeah, I'm not sure that you got much option.
No, absolutely. All right, I'm gonna throw a little softball here. I'm gonna throw it up
Okay.
in preparation for you to absolutely hit this home run. So now, most people might see you as a value for value expert. So if you had to describe to a very new joiner into the world of value for value or Bitcoin or crypto or the way that people can support us, how might you simplify it as much as possible? They type into ChatGPT, explain value for value to me as if I was a 12-year-old boy. How would you describe it?
Okay, so I would probably go about it like this. Value for value is exceedingly simple. We produce some value up front, no cost to you. You can listen in, tune in as much as you want. And whatever value that you get, we just ask that you send it back. So sending it back can come in many forms. It doesn't have to be in money. So for us, we ask that you share the podcast on with another person. If you are an expert in a domain and we've been talking about your domain and we got some facts wrong, let us know about that. Or if you are just an expert in general and you feel that we've got this all wrong, give us a detailed argument as to why. We would love that. That would be exceedingly helpful for us. And then in the monetary form, we ask that you send it back because it does cost money to maintain this podcast with the cameras, the microphones, the uploading of audio, the hosting, all of that sort of thing. We ask that you try and do this through various means. There's probably the easiest one, which is going on to our PayPal. So if you go to meremodelspodcast.com/support, there's going to be a PayPal button there. I'm going to do that very shortly. It's not up there right yet. And the harder way, but the way that we enjoy more, is sending in money via the actual app. So as you're listening to this podcast in the audio format, there's a button that you can click there called a boost if you're on a newer app which has this functionality, and you can send us some money, in this case Bitcoin, with a message attached, and we read those out in the show. That's what a boostagram is. And yeah, it's just a real fun way of supporting with the show and sending in value, and us knowing that you've done it as well. That's I could probably refine that more, but yeah, it's a good first.
That's a good one.
effort.
I like it. I like it. I've actually been playing with how would I like elevator pitch this, and
I think
like,
it's useful to not even talk about the Bitcoin, to be honest.
well, no, I think I've come down
just
to,
saying
because the way
money.
that I would try to say it is, we're a value for value podcast. Value for value is a way for the originating party, us as a podcast, creating some value, and there's a fixed way which that is. The other side, which is the listener, provides value back, and it's V equals triple T. And I think you've said it before: time,
Mhm.
talent, treasure. Time being X, talent being something else, treasure being something else, and then it removes the conversation around Bitcoin, which, in particular, as you were saying, you can send through a Boostagram with Bitcoin attached, with Satoshi's fractional amount of Bitcoin. That's what treasure is for us. However, you can provide it through in the intermediary sense through the PayPal account as well. But I think there's a call out to us, and mere mortals at home, make sure you leave a comment here if you think it needs improvement or whatnot. But I almost challenge us between me and you, Karen, at the mere mortals. I think we need to be the ones who come out with the elevator pitch for value for value. I don't
Yeah,
think there is one proper one out there. I'm talking like there's podcasts, there's hours of content. I think we need to be the ones that have like, this is the 30-second pitch that hits most people. Like you say, hey, what's value for value? Or you say value for value? It's this and this, time, talent, treasure, bang, bang, bang. Lock it in, like something that's really delectable. Like, you leave them like kind of like salivating in the mouth. Like, oh yeah,
I want to know more.
That was tasty. That was
Yeah.
tasty. Yeah.
Agreed. And I mean, like, look, that's kind of what I've got in my monthly goals. That's a lot of what the Value for Value podcast is about. It's me it's kind of like forcing myself to go and check out what are these other people doing. Here's a really just a fun one out of interest that you might that you won't have heard of. So Chris Fisher, one of his shows, is I'm not sure if I'd call it exactly value for value. It's like a twist on it, where he's basically saying, I'm not going to release the next episode until we have 1.5 million sats come in, because that's how much it costs to actually produce this show. And so in this case, it's not a paywall. It's kind of like crowdfunding, I guess, which I'm not sure I'd call it exactly value for value, but it's pretty damn close to it. And it'll be real interesting to see how he goes about, if it's at 1.4 million, but no one else is contributing, how does he then highlight that so that last person can send in 100,000? And
yeah, well, I'll give you an example of what I've been thinking about. Again, this is unstructured, and look, we've come kind of the end of the podcast, so we're going a little bit away from expertise and skepticism. But this might be an interesting one. One of the highest earners on YouTube, right, Mr. Beast. He's talked about the way that he does or creates things, and I think in the latest podcast interview he did, he was like, he could probably, he says that he could go and create a brand new YouTube without his face, being like an unknown individual, and reasonably get it to about 20 million views per video quite easily, right, without any followers. Now it sounds insane, but look, there's probably some parts of the algorithm that enables him to do that. But his idea of creating content which kind of enables or forces the viewership in mind, I like that idea. Obviously, I don't like some of the ways that it's going for the algorithm, and the value behind it is maybe is it does it increase human flourishing? Probably not so much. But I would love to do a spin-off on that in a similar way that you were just talking about, where it's almost like, hey, let's crowdfund so we can have a conversation with and insert, a really well-known person that people want to ask questions of. Like, let's just say Sailor, right? Could we crowdfund in the sense of, hey, mere mortalites, we think, like, we want to go and have a conversation with Michael Saylor. to enable us to do this. We've reasonably, had a look and we could fly here, talk to this person, get this sorted out, but we need X amount. If you send that through, we'll deploy it in that exact manner and see if we can make it happen. And then we'll go and have the conversation.
No way.
So, would that be rational? Would that work? I don't know. But I think this plays into a little bit of I think we can do things differently. And we're now enough of the bleeding edge experts at Value for Value that honestly, and I'm putting this out there for the mere mortals, more specifically you, because I'm definitely just lagging and running with you. We are, in this podcast, I think we need to be the innovators that the space needs in the different senses. A technological sense that's being done. But honestly, at this point, if there's anyone who's going to breach the threshold of the general humanity and Value for Value, like it's going to be you, driven through a lot of the conversations that we're having and Value for Value and stuff like that. So it's no small weight on your shoulders, but it's almost to the point that it's like it is down to a few humans on this earth to move the Value for Value onto the mainstream, and Kyron's one of them. So
yeah, I've got some thoughts on it. Like
getting back to Boostagrams and all that. Obviously, that supports us, but it also encourages us. The more we're seeing people support us through that model, enables us to just push the boundaries and go and have fun doing it.
Yeah, I think there's the small ways of doing it as well, which is you're going to have a chat with Jeff Yu. I will be outraged if you don't get a lightning address from him and give it to me so that I can then put it into the feed and tell him about this is how we do it. So I think agreed. There's lots of thoughts, and just got to keep working on it.
Yeah, don't you better believe, folks, that me and Karen will be having a conversation probably over some drinks about this very topic over the weekend. So
okay, all right, nice.
It will happen.
How many drinks deep will we be?
All right, folks, we're gonna leave it there. I hope you have enjoyed. This was a bit of a long conversation about a few things, but predominantly around experts and skepticism and everything in between. We've told you how you can support us. We'll leave it at that. Mere Mortalites, I hope you have enjoyed wherever you are in the world. Juan out.
Karen out.